Hi, I'm James Borg of the Uforia Chronicles. With me to my left is my co-host, Charlie Kundalini. The man behind the camera is the one that makes everything rock and roll for the Uforia Chronicles. He's a man simply known as the Unknown Rocker. Together, we are the Uforia Chronicles. Today's episode, we're going to be chronicling the UFO and alien abduction stories of Canada's most prolific UFO experiencer that's documented hundreds of UFO sightings. He's a man simply known as Paul Shishis.
He's nicknamed the UFO magnet for his abilities to attract and recognize aerial phenomena. A book has been written about his life called Phenomenal Paul by the occult author Martha Jett. He has been a regular host on Contact Radio and has revealed and appeared in several stations dealing with the EBEs and UFO-related matters within the Ontario community. However, James, you know Paul since 2007, and you've shared multiple sightings with him. How about you start this interview with Paul?
Charlie, I'd be happy to. That's true. I've known I first met Paul Shishis in 2007 when I was going through a little freakiness in my life. And without people like Paul in my life, who's been through it ahead of time than me, he kind of grounded me. So I appreciate his friendship and kinship there. And yes, we have had many UFO sightings together, which were pretty freaky, some of them. And in addition to all that, there's another book out there. It's called Terror in the Night, Alien Abduction Exposed, where we share the commonality that we're both in the book. Paul's on chapter 10, and I believe I'm on chapter 17. So I'd like to mention that. And it was, again, written by Martha Jett.
Fantastic.
And now, I'd like to introduce to you the UFO magnet himself, Paul Shishis.
Paul, do you feel you have been exploited for information about UFO and EBE experiences, and then had your character or persona assassinated in a negative way long after a previous interview?
Yes, I have. I have noticed that.
Can you elaborate?
I can elaborate with a fellow by the name of Rob. Rob did the first interview as an interested person of what I had told him, and had good friendly conversations during the interview, after the interview, and Rob kept calling me about doing a second interview, which I had been busy, but I had finally the time to go through the second interview. And while I was speaking to Rob during the interview, everything had changed. He wouldn't talk to me between the break, and I noticed that during this second interview, he started to ridicule not just myself, but the subject as well. And that I found very astonishing, how a person can be two-faced such as he was. And as I've noticed, he runs my name with this interview almost every other month since it was done in 2010.
Wow. Yeah, I know Rob, unfortunately. Paul, not well enough, but that's okay. I don't want to deal with him. Paul, 1977 was a very special year for ufology across the board. It was my first UFO sighting in '77. There was 2 blockbuster movies that came out. There was Star Wars and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. But also, Paul, on August 4th, 1977, something happened to you. Can you relive that moment?
Well, back on August 4th, 1977, I was working at Dominion Stores Limited at Nielsen and Ellesmere, working the car pickup outside. It was just hitting dusk, and as I'm loading a car with groceries in the trunk, adjacent to me was a man sitting in his car parked alongside the field. And he asked me, "What is that up there?" And I looked quickly, I said, "It's a plane," and continued to load the car, finish the car. The next car pulled up and the man still sitting in the car says, "But look at it, it's not moving." I quickly looked again in the direction and I said, "It's a helicopter." So I continued to service my job in loading the car with groceries. Now the second car was done. And so the man again said to me, as if he started bugging me, he said, "But look at the lights on it." So now I was focused without any duties to do with any customers, and I could see approximately a mile directly to the east, I would say on the northeast corner of Morningside and Ellesmere, was a circle of different colored lights rotating around above the treetops. It was quite low. So immediately I wanted to get a closer look, and I ran across the field about 200 yards. When I had stopped to look at the object, because as I ran, I just looked down as I ran, but when I had stopped and I looked straight ahead, 200 yards short a mile, it wasn't there anymore. And I looked up at the sky directly above me and turned my shoulder to the west, and it was approximately 2-3 degrees off 50 feet away at about at least plus or minus 200 feet. It was an incredible sight for any 18-year-old to see. Why? Because as I'm about to explain this, this is exactly what it looked like. It was shaped like a pear. It was all silver, no markings on it. I was facing the back end of the larger part of the craft. It had a large orangey yellow light in the center at the back with 4 colors of light rotating clockwise that were 30% the size of the light in the middle. And it would shine a blue, green, yellow, red, continuously going clockwise. I was mesmerized at that moment at looking at this craft that could measure anywhere between 30, 40 feet on average without making a sound. I thought they were time travelers. I didn't know what's going on. I was in awe. Then I started sensing the word Neanderthal in my mind. I started sensing bone density while looking at this craft. After 10 to 15 minutes, I thought, now it's time, I need to find a witness. So I ran across the field as fast as I got to the field, ran back. 3 things I noticed when I hit the edge of the parking lot. The fella in the car who pointed it out to me, he was gone. The object was making a high-pitched beeping sound, and also it was moving approximately 2-3 miles per hour, if that, very slow, heading in a northwest direction. I ran out to the field and yelled for a coworker to come and see it. The coworker who was collecting the buggies ran over, and as we can stand in the field at it being at a greater distance now of a mile again, we could see the wheel of colors going around and hear the beeping sound. It was looking like it was heading over the 401. So we lost sight of it after a minute and a half, and we went back to work. I was very excited at what I had seen. I could not explain what I had seen. I still thought in my mind, were they time travelers?
How old were you, Paul?
I was 18 years old. I continued on working at the car pickup with no cars coming. After about 15 minutes approximately, we heard a swishing sound, like going across the sky. The fella, coworker, screamed across the parking lot, "Did you hear that?" And I said, yeah, I heard that. And again, we were together looking at the sky, and we could see like a strip cloud from east to west where I'd first seen the object in the field, but it was much higher up. But we were looking and facing to the east, and we could see a red, white, pulsating light, brightly pulsating on and off. It could have been as far as Pickering. It could have been further out in Durham, even out to Whitby, Oshawa, Ajax, but it was high pulsating for at least a minute and a half. And what, oddly enough, it stopped and reappeared simultaneously to the south, 2 to 5 miles south, and did the same thing for another minute and a half. And it went out, and the show was over.
Wow. Paul, is Hollywood's interest in EBEs and space activity movies assisting or negating based public opinion on the reality of interplanetary visitations to the Earth and the interactions with humans?
To your question, Charlie, it's a double-edged sword. There is good to it, and there is negativity to it. I'll explain that the good part of it is to bring an awareness to the person's psyche that there could be something much higher or other intelligences outside our planet. As we catalog the many species of biological life on this planet in the trillions, as we look vast to the stars, we will see that every star houses planets, and every star system houses many other stars with planets. So the sky's the limit of higher existence and maybe even lower existence of ourselves, who are just coming into light now in a generation to that. As to the other side of the negativity, it perpetuates a fear that because of their intelligence and superiority of what we've witnessed in the sky and their abilities of technology surpasses our understanding. And it seems we're eventually creeping up each year technologically more advanced and mimicking of what we have been hearing and seeing of their technology, which is our technology coming into being.
True. Paul, my next question, in 2007, this is when I first was evident to me in our conversations over the phone. I noticed there was a lot of clicking noises on our phone calls. We even had a lot of drop calls where the phone went dead, and I had to call you back up, and you had to call me back up. And since then, many other UFO experiences have witnessed the same thing on their phones. Even the computers go dead sometimes. Has this been evident with you throughout your life?
It has been more evident to me, probably if we're talking telephones in 2003 and 2004. If we're talking about computers, also in 2004-05, my computer motherboard fried. Camera can also corrupt while taking pictures. As well as the camera card can be corrupted. These things I've also found too, James. With phones being cut off, people listening, yes, this has happened to me continuously, but it really peaked probably between 2003 to 2007. When you talk also dealing with phones, I had a problem with my work phone, always leaving a message with an answering machine telling me that please hang up and try your call again. Please hang up and try your call again. The most memorable time I will remember dealing with malfunctioning of phones was on March 18th, 2003, when in Oshawa that year, between January to April in 2003, we've had a series of power outages. They must have happened so frequently almost every other day, James. And most of them, of course, would be a quick power outage with a flashing clock. So when I woke up that morning, I saw that there must have been a power outage, and I had gone to the kitchen and found the power was on, went back upstairs and noticed that my plug was pulled out of my wall. And I don't know how it happened, because I always check my clock and phone before I go to bed. And my wife then just later goes to bed and lays down. So the plug was behind the wall where the bed is. And so what is the real kicker in all this is what I'm trying to say, dealing with phones, is that when I was at work later that morning. My wife had called and said, Paul, something's wrong with our phones. And I go, what do you mean something's wrong with our phones? She says, well, first of all, when they ring, they all have different tones. The original ringtones had changed. And also, when she picked it up to hear the other end, she mostly heard, please hang up and try your call again. Or she would hear a party line where they couldn't hear her. So she was very concerned about the phone line. And I just told her, well, honey, at least you can get calls out. I'll check it out when I come home. And also, with that, the next day, Bell Canada had fixed the problem. They were notified the problem had been fixed. But when we talk about listening or stalking or surveilling on the phone, I have talked to 2 investigators, one out west and one here in Western Ontario. And in subject, what I brought up, I had a very loud, high-pitched, whiny sound, like that kind of sound, where I had to take the phone away from my ear because it was so loud of a high pitch that after 30, 40 seconds, I heard it stop. So I brought the phone closer back to the ear and told the other party, did you hear that? And both have said, hear what?
Wow. Yeah, on that topic, Paul, it leads to my next question. If you don't mind, I'm going to interrupt there. You were mentioning that you had power outages. Now, I noticed it myself, too. I have a little bit of a kerfuffling problem with light bulbs. For some reason, I go through a lot of light bulbs. It's kind of not too funny because it's a lot of light bulbs. And this is freaky, too. And you were saying the same thing. I want you to elaborate more. When we walk down the street and we come in line with the light goes out. And I know you have a thing about electricity. Can you tell everybody in the world your thing with electricity and light bulbs, what happens to you?
Well, in 2003, as I mentioned in Oshawa, there were many power outages. And even while in 2003, I could sense before a power outage was to happen. Even if I was driving and I looked at one side of the street, suddenly a whole line of lights would go out. If I was in a rec center across the street and talking to someone in the change room about my son getting his clothes dirty, I would just say his mother would have to shout it out. Suddenly the power out would happen. Or you're in a grocery store, you feel something's going to happen of a power outage, you're just handed your bag and then the power outage happens before you go out the door. This is also happening in the banks. It goes not just with the actual power outages themselves, but the malfunctioning of machines. I'm starting to notice. How many times have I heard dealing with somebody, this has never happened before? And that's just mostly with computers. In that retrospect, there are various business machines. Even my phone cuts out talking during interviews, technical problems. We do question of the source. Is it something human? Is it something non-human? Are we connecting to something that's creating the power surge that causes the disconnection of energy? I'm not really got my finger totally on that one yet, but it has been ongoing.
Paul, James has experienced many hauntings and ghost encounters. Has this also been a part of your past intriguing history?
Well, Charlie, that's a very interesting question. And it brings to my mind of what I've gone through as a child to adulthood. Yes, I've had and experienced ghost symptoms that even my hair raises. I think the most memorable and real hair raiser would be just within a year after my girlfriend back in 1986, today's my wife, we were in our apartment. It was a fall evening. It was actually 1 in the morning, I remember that, and I was not quite asleep yet as I was waiting for my girlfriend to come into bed, and she took about 15-20 minutes and came, and we were both laying there very quietly, and suddenly in our apartment, which we are 7 stories up at a corner wing of the apartment, on the northwest corner in Scarborough, we heard our front door open, and we heard footsteps coming down the long parquet floor, one step at a time, walking towards the direction of our bedroom and stopping with the sound in front of our bedroom doorway. And we both raised ourselves out of the bed looking to see who was there, because we felt somebody was there, but we could see just blackness because it's 1 in the morning with the lights off. So I grabbed something, I don't know what it was, maybe even an ashtray or something, and I quietly walked through our bedroom, going into the second bedroom to see who was there, and immediately coming out of there and going to the door first to check to see if the door was locked or open, and it was locked. And I could not find anybody there. But myself and my girlfriend had heard the same noises that someone had entered our apartment. We saw nothing. And that is a ghost experience that I know my wife will never forget.
Paul, tell us about your visit to St. George Church. Why you went there, what happened, and why was the priest freaked out?
Well, yeah, one of the many sightings I had in 2003. In the early stages of mid-2003, I felt in study of many topics, including the hierarchy of angels, that one icon that caught my eye was St. Michael. I wanted to get a St. Michael medallion and have it blessed by the church that I had my, when I was baptized, Greek Orthodox, that I thought that would resonate, you know, protection. As kooky as it sounds, based on what I've seen, it would give me more peace of mind to have this done. So in September, I had looked up St. George's Church and called them, and the priest said, sure, I will bless the medallion, but you must come in for the service. So I went out there with one of my sons, and we were not in a Greek Orthodox church, we were in a Russian church. You know, Orthodox also crosses the Russians that are Slavic, you know, when you start talking different religions. So we sat through the Mass in Russian. After the Mass was over, the priest obligingly blessed the medallion. And I mentioned to the priest, and he could speak English because some of the service was in English. I mentioned to him, Father, I'm seeing strange objects in the sky. And he just didn't want to go on about that. And he said, bless you, here's your medallion. And I thanked him. So we finished and we went outside, my son and we were going to the parking lot. And I looked up in the sky to the north, and I could see, the best way to describe it is a bright type of plasma light. It was mostly white with a little bit of red shimmering from it. It was moving from the west to the east, and it looked like it was quite a few thousand feet up there. And suddenly my son said, look, Dad, there's another one. So trailing behind the first one was another one, probably in the space of, I would say, anywhere from half a mile to a mile apart, and moving in the same flight path or direction as the first one, except this one wasn't all white and red. The second one was all white and with a haze of green. After another one appeared, I went over to a driver who was near the parking lot. There are some townhouses. He was in his truck, and I said, excuse me, sir, I'm sorry to bother you, but can you come outside and have a look at this? There's something strange in the sky. He tried to look while sitting. I said, no, sir, you have to come out and look at it. So he obligingly came out, and it took me about a minute for him to see it. But when he saw it, he looked at me and he said, what the F is that? In a serious, curious, frightened way. And I said, I don't know. I just wanted to show you. He immediately went back in the truck, put his hands on the steering wheels, and just straightened his arms staring at it without another sound. There were a couple other young children around 10, 11 years old playing. I asked them if they could see it. They as well could see it. I go, this is incredible. Now we've just seen 3 objects happening. I want to go in the priest to show him what's going on. So we proceeded back around the church from the back to the side entrance facing the west side. And we went into the doors, and he was inside his office with people. And I said, Father, those objects are showing up. I want to show them to you. He says, I'm sorry. He says, I have another mass to do. And I said, okay, Father, that's fine. Here of what I'm describing is the hair raiser. And the hair raiser is, when my son and I came outside those doors from that church, St. George, looking to the west, probably as much as 5 miles away, we could see a black manta ray shaped object sitting stationary that had to been a mile in size. It was almost like looking at something like a mirage. It was there, and it had that sort of wavy thing image. It was there, and it looked black, James. Actually, I asked my son, I said, what color does that look to you? And he says, it looks brown. I said, no, that looks black. And we were watching it a couple of minutes, and I'm just like godsmacked because of its size. What is running through my mind now is, does it have anything to do with what I've just witnessed of these other ones? Is this some other craft moving in compared to the little ones? Or were the little ones coming out of the bigger craft, like probes, which is a possibility? So as we were in a state of shock, the priest came outside to close the doors to the church. I said, Father, there's one of the objects up there. He took 2 steps forward between my son and I. He didn't lift his head up. He just raised his eyes. And he looked up, and he paused for 20, 30 seconds max. And he looked over to me, says, you can come back inside you want. I said, that's okay, Father. We'll just hang out here. And he went and took the steps backwards, whoosh, closing the doors. And my son complaining, let's go. You promised we'll go to the CN Tower. So we went to the car, started her up, and we went a little closer to the CN Tower, parking on Queen Street, got out of the car, walking along the north side or the south side of Queen Street, looking to the north. Well, guess what? Another plasma light, except there were no other colors associated. It was all white, moving across the sky. I stop another woman. Excuse me, ma'am, I'm sorry to bother you, but can you tell me what that is up there? Says, I don't know. Oh, yeah, I don't know what that is. You need binoculars. I thought, okay, thanks very much. And that's all she thought about that. Then I stopped another fella. And he goes, yeah, that's pretty weird. And he moved on. And I'm looking, wondering, you know, what's going on here? Now I've seen 5 of these plasma, maybe 6. Okay, because of the excitement, you can't maybe keep an exact count. But I saw 5 or 6 of these white plasma lights moving across in the same direction, same area, one after the other, and not to mention this huge black manta ray craft. Maybe it was a triangle on the way it was positioned in an angle, but to me, it looked like a manta ray. It was huge. It was incredible. So we went to the CN Tower. When the CN Tower was done, we went to McDonald's, and we found there were people from my town in Oshawa, because I heard them saying to the attendants in McDonald's, oh yeah, we're from Oshawa. And I walked up and I said, hey, we're from Oshawa too. And she looked at me, she says, oh, are you here for the big church thing going on? And I go, what do you mean? She says, well, in the convention center, there was a big church gathering. So I thought maybe it wasn't me where I'd seen all this, where they were appearing for my eyes. Maybe the conjuring up of prayer and a greater mass of consciousness brought these things, to be curious.
So Paul, you've had countless sightings with many witnesses. How did the witnesses react to the sightings? Did they acknowledge the sightings? Do the witnesses go a little screwy in the head after a sighting? Can you elaborate?
Well, I found each has their own effects, but to look at the larger groups, I found people were frightened, followed by people were also frightened of ridicule by telling other people what they had just witnessed, I noticed. Even, you know, with some of the witnesses telling me they wouldn't tell their spouse of what they had seen. If it goes on to people I have had sightings with, don't want to talk about it around their spouses because it upsets them. So the reaction is frightened and also the subject of ridicule. I have found that people don't want to get associated with it. And again, thank you, Hollywood. Could have been the state of mind these people were in. With me, it's been a feeding of fascination and interest. And of course, there is a big, sharp vein of fear and shock that goes with it.
Have you ever had an experience in your life that involved aliens, UFOs, ghosts, or the unexplained? Do you have a story or message that you would like to have recorded and profiled? If you do, then let us know. The Uforia Chronicles specialize in documenting your experiences and information that you would like to share with the world. For a custom quote to profile your story, then contact us.
For first-timers, for example, I pointed out 2 UFOs to 2 older teenagers on April 1st, 2004, before going swimming. And the mother finally came out of the car after we watched it for a couple of minutes. And one of the young girls said, "Mama, look, a UFO." And we all looked, and it was gone. There were 2 white UFOs above each other in a vertical position over Lake Ontario near the vein of the clouds. You could clearly see it with a red field around it. So when I asked them if they would call the investigator to confirm my sighting, I'll just go to the office and get a pen and paper, they said sure. So when I came back out to see them, they were gone. They didn't even go swimming. So this tells me, Charlie, they were absolutely frightened, like, keep away, it's a taboo.
Wow. Okay, Paul, now we're going to get a little bit heavy here. We're going to take this interview in a twist here. We're going to be talking about alien abductions, and we're going to talk about, more precisely, some of the beings that you've seen, some of the ETBEs that you've seen. There was one event that you've seen 3, I believe, at the same time. It's the event that happened, I guess, when you're a boy, and it's the Paul is a ball, and it involved an insectoid species, or praying mantis type, plus 2 other alien beings.
Yes.
Specifically, I want you to give a good account of what these beings look like, so people out on the internet listening to this conversation can hear what they look like, and you can paint them a picture on these beings.
Sure. Let me draw you a picture by words. And of that, as I was a child in the range of age 4, no more than 5, from my first memory of this, because these were ongoing nightmares as I interpret as a child in my adulthood until age 44 to confirm that, that in 1963-64, I was awake in the arms of a very hideous creature. There were 2 of them. They were quite tall, and their large heads with their large black eyes with no pupils. One was holding me, and I was looking right into the face, and it gave me a stare of how dare you look at my face, where I felt paralyzed with my whole entire body, where I could only move my eyes and I could only hear. And by that, as we were walking through the hallway of our bedrooms upstairs, holding on to me, I could see my parents' bedroom that was in a different state of matter to where I was amongst these creatures. There was sound of one of my parents snoring, which I could hear. They had a movement like their legs were spindly, and that they moved like they were robotic, moving in a robotic fashion. Their legs looked to me quite long and stick-like, and this is all I remember of where they were carrying me towards the bathroom, which is the backyard direction. I don't remember, but I do remember thereafter being in a cornerless room. And in the cornerless room, that was a mushroom-lit room with no real light sources happening, it was illuminated, just low-tone light. And in the middle of this cornerless room, I remember there was a square table, approximately in the middle, not quite in the middle, but on one side. And around the table were these shorter type of beings with eyes that looked like a snowman. In fact, I thought they looked like snowmen. They were shorter. They looked white with round black eyes, not what I'd seen in the wraparound praying mantis types from the house. And they were around the table. There was probably at least 5, maybe 7 of them around the table, and they were throwing me to each other. And I was afraid they were going to drop me or throw me down to the ground of the table. And when one was holding me, I remember, because of the first one, not to stare into the face, but I saw the cranial. The cranial was huge. And while I was looking at the cranial movement, it was like the cranial was jerking like this, checking me out from head to toe, and would throw me to the next one. I was deeply afraid. But these two were definitely different, not only by their size of height, but their appearance. As I call them, they looked like snowmen. They were shorter. They seemed to have a group satire or humor happening when they were throwing me around, that Paul's the ball. So it was like a game. Paul is the ball. So what I do next remember after that series of thought way back, that I was somewhere, I don't know where, but it was totally dark. I believe it wasn't in my bedroom, because there would be some light coming from the bedroom window with even the drape. It was totally dark, and I could see and hear a white round light, bright white, moving across at a distance like a pendulum, and you could almost hear a coming closer and getting bigger and bigger till it totally encompassed me, crushing me against my chest with a terrible sensation, screaming, and I found myself in my bed screaming blue murder and in a sweat, and my parents came into my bedroom, and my father said, "Should we take him to the hospital?" And my mother said, "He's just had a bad nightmare and he has a fever. I'll take him into our bed." And I never calmed down that night to remember what I had seen. And as these dreams continued on, these ongoing nightmares, the smaller creatures now were in the house. The tall ones weren't around. It was the smaller, shorter ones now that seemed to dominate coming and visiting. I don't recall ever seeing these tall ones again, like the praying mantis. And while they were coming around my bed and during that interaction, I always noticed, most of the time, not all the time, there was a shadowy figure that looked like I would assume or catalog as a shadow person. It was a faceless, darker entity.
How high in height?
I would say probably around 5 or 6 feet plus.
Any weird smells in the room?
I don't recall as a child, but it never interacted with me. It was like it was just watching of what was going on. I don't recall being alone with this, but while the bug guys or the snowman guys were around, the shadow person would always be at the foot of the bed. And I did some research on that, what drew the shadow persons, and also it could be the energies off your feet is why he was at the end of the bed.
Why do you think it might be a shadow person, Paul?
Well, it's only the best description to give based in characteristics of appearance, that it was very black. It almost looked like there might have been a hood with it, okay? But the face, there was really no face to make out. Just looked like a dark person, but I can't see eyes. I don't think you can see much of a nose. It was almost like a human kind of black blob.
But you didn't see any face.
Didn't see a face.
But it did appear to be wearing a gown, a hooded gown.
All black.
Okay, because I seen something like that once too.
It was all black. It was not interfacing with me, but looked like it was watching.
This hooded, so that was this hooded creature or species was in the room at the same time with the other beings?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think, and here's an analogy maybe you haven't really discovered, do you think that that being wearing the hood, the gown, the robe, may have stopped something serious happening during that event with the other beings in there?
I can't really say for certain, James, but maybe the presence of this shadowy entity might have been present to overlook of what was going on.
But did it stop soon afterward, this experience? When you seen this hooded being?
Well, they were ongoing, but there were times I remember when the bug
during that
eyes...
event, did it stop after the hooded being came in?
No.
No.
No, the events continued.
No, but the event of that particular date, when you noticed a hooded being in the room,
right,
along with the other two ET species, is that it? Did it end? Did your experience end when you seen the hooded person, the shadow person?
You mean end as in
of that
you're
day,
waking up?
Of that day, that period, that occurrence, that
yes,
particular occurrence?
Yes, it was noted, not at the beginning, but as it was going on, the shadow person was there. And when it was all over with the situation, you'd wake up and you'd start another day.
Yeah, okay, because that's interesting, because you just tied in something in my life now. Because when I seen that being, there was another occurrence happening, and when the being came into the room, their beings left. It like they disintegrated, just like a ghost disintegrating there. So that's interesting we brought that up. Okay, I'm very, very glad we made a connection there, because that experience too, it was up only until a couple of weeks ago that I was able to elaborate more fully in my life, in my situation, and this makes perfect sense with that. So we're on to something here, Paul.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Yes.
And the key thing is he was wearing a gown that was hooded. That's the key thing. Right. You got another question there? I think it was something about September 17th, right?
Yeah. Paul, September 17th, you had a sighting of a morphing UFO. What went on that day?
It goes back to September 17th, 2009. I had gone to bed earlier than I usually do, so thus I woke up earlier in the morning. It was a work week. So I was up and having a tea approximately around 20 after 5 in the morning. I decided to go outside with my tea. It was sort of a warm early morning. And I thought just to take a look at the night sky that early in the morning, because I usually am not up at that time. So with my tea outside looking up, I thought, I did not say, I thought, so to my mind, show me a sign if you're watching me. Within a few seconds, while I'm looking directly above where the roof is, high in the sky, I saw a bright flash appear, pause for 2 seconds, then another 3-4 rapid white flashes, pause for another second or two, then another single white flash. And I'm looking up in the sky gobsmacked, going, my God, from a thought, not seeing any more remnants of a light, aircraft, no sound, and it was merely through a thought. So I got myself eventually together and went to work. With that in my mind, I went to work and I had a late lunch. When I came outside, feeling the way I was feeling, my camera was in my pocket, ready to go if anything should appear. When I went outside, opening the parking lot door to go out to the parking lot, I could see approximately at least 100 yards or a little more black, vertical, weird object coming towards me, directly towards me. Right away, I pulled out my camera. I popped 2 pictures of what I just witnessed with my eyes. Then I took my eyes off it to change my camera mode to the video. Then I filmed a quick video and took a still shot of it. And to my dismay, there are things that happened here. 2 things. It changed shape. It opened up. It was getting bigger in length and in width, changed its colors to more of a darker black. And also, it changed direction. It was now heading to the north. So it wasn't coming anymore towards me after I popped the 2 pictures. It changed its course, it changed its size, and I filmed it on a video clip very quickly, and it just carried on heading to the north. I had 1, 2, 3 witnesses. The other 2 just went in, didn't say anything. The one fella beside me looked at me, and I'm just telling you what he said. He says, looks like a big piece of garbage, because it looked like it was 11, 15 feet long and about maybe 5, 7 feet wide. Now, you know, I wanted to know what it was because of previously what had happened in the morning. I jumped in my car, went through the industrial streets to see if I could find it because it was low. It couldn't have been no more than 150 feet up in elevation. It was quite low. And I could not find it anymore, giving up in 2 minutes. So going to lunch now, I stopped at the light at Warden and Comstock, and I looked to the northwest, and I could see a white one, very much higher in the sky, moving across the sky, also daintily into the clouds, so I decided to film that as well. And I took a quick video clip with the radio on. And then the light changed, and I thought, okay, I put down the camera and carried on to go for my lunch. I didn't even stop, which I should have just stopped and continued to film it on the other side of the road, but I didn't. I was pretty amazed and freaked out from the morning, and then the black one, and then the white one. Now that was 3 different sightings, Charlie. Or is it possible the second sighting of the black one went further higher up and changed its color to white? I don't know.
Well, that particular sighting you're talking about is that you could chalk this one in the annals of ufology there, because you have some very good pictures of a very unique type of UFO that I've never seen before, nor have there been any diagrams. You know how you see the UFO charts with the diagrams? That particular sighting, there's no one's seen it. So it's the first time, as far as I know, in the history of mankind, that a person has seen it. Not only seen it, you filmed it, and you got pictures of it. So I want to tap you on the back for that one, because it's the most unique UFO sighting I've ever seen on film or photograph.
We studied that picture. We did some reports, and we didn't we hear some strange sounds?
Yeah, that's true. We did.
Paul, tell us about the sounds that you heard and we heard
On the film.
It looks like a shark. It's one of the most incredible UFO pictures of all time.
This again is the shocking part, Charlie. I didn't hear a sound with my ears. When I had played the clip, I was trying to figure out where the source came from because it was quite loud. It sounded very mechanical of a sound, a repetitive sound happening. And I assume now the sound was coming from the object itself. The object itself, with the pictures I have, looks very close to the Black Knight that has been circling our Earth for many, many years, but they don't know the true origin of that. So I do wonder if it is related.
Yeah.
Can you duplicate those sounds with your mouth?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Paul, at the Ascension or Annihilation 2012 Prophecy panel meeting, you stated you had a sighting of a serpent creature riding a mechanical vehicle.
No, what I have to go back to August 7th, 2003 while at camp. I was at camp. This is near the sandbanks of Prince Edward County. And I'd seen many UFO sightings at camp, more so since '99. But I was just finishing a cigarette, ready to go in for a shower, and this was around 1 in the morning. Camp is very quiet at that time. And about 6, 7 feet away from me, where I'm standing, a long snake-like creature, probably on average about 3 feet long. So, Charlie, it's like taking a broom handle stick, cutting it 3 feet long and increasing the girth of the broom handle stick of maybe 4 or 5 inches. In description, it had 2 large eyes at the front of it and no wings along the side. I didn't notice a mouth or a beak, so for some kind of a bird not cataloged. But here's the kooky thing, is that behind it was a gyration. I don't know if they were feathers or a motor, but I could hear a motor fan sound as it passed me only 5-6 feet away, and only in the elevation of 5 to 6 feet. I would say it was no higher than 6 feet. And because there was a single light on a pole, I definitely know what I saw in description, what I'm describing to you.
Paul, can you replicate that sound you heard in some way, maybe?
The sound of itself was like you would hear a gyration of a fan, like, you know, going past. Did a figure 8 and was gone back in the night where it came. I screamed. I didn't know what it was. I was shocked. As I'm composing myself, wondering what it was I just saw,
Paul,
it came back.
What it is you just saw, do you think it could have looked like a dragon in any way?
It could have a possibility that maybe the jaw might have been a little longer, okay? Just a little, not a whole lot, because as it passed by, the eyes rolled back at me like you would go behind a dog with its eyes, and it was like obviously wanting to be noticed, and they came back again about 30 seconds later, 30, 40 feet away in the night, that I saw it do the same thing. It came straight through, did a figure 8, low, and was gone. And I was just scared.
Was it more animal or more human?
It looked to me to be more animal, Charlie. It's almost like saying it looked like a flying pike, you know, or a flying snake. And when I went in the shower to calm down, I came out and I couldn't comprehend what I had seen. I was very frightened of what I'd seen. Something that has not been cataloged, but very interesting enough, I've seen and heard of rods, which are pictographs in the shores of Argentina that go back hundreds of years, of people actually seeing flying snake-like creatures. So they're called starfish or sunfish. So that's very interesting.
Okay, Paul, explain Eugene pretty quickly in the size 15 shoe.
Okay, that's 2 stories in one. I'll first go to Eugene. On a Friday night, going home from Scarborough, being with some friends, I thought I'd stop into Whitby and have one drink, which I did. And I came out, and I was going to go to the coffee shop and have a coffee because of that one drink I had. And as I'm coming along the street, there was a fella there standing, like waiting for somebody, and we started chatting. And he said he's waiting for a friend, but the friend hasn't come out. Maybe let's just go to the coffee shop. So together we went to the coffee shop. We sat down, and he introduced himself, and he said, don't be surprised if this coffee shop gets stormed by the FBI or the CIA. And I go, what do you mean? And he says, I work with Bill Gates. He says, I'm the developer of the magnetic strip. Then he started talking physics to me like I was a simpleton. I was perplexed. I also noticed on his hands he had 4 rings, blue, green, yellow, red. Well, hello, that's the logo for Microsoft, not to mention the lights that circumferenced around the craft I saw, blue, green, yellow, red. These 4 primary colors, light spectrum, might give you something to think about of technologies too, of light spectrums. So he continued to carry on and said he claimed to have 185 IQ. He was the developer of the magnetic strip, and he said to me, I also stopped the mark of the beast. And I go, really? And he says, but somebody will come up with it later. I can't stop it. And then a woman sat down with us who looked as you would define a gypsy woman, with her eyes, very mystic eyes. And she brought up the subject as I started talking about UFOs, that 2 silver craft, long crafts over Whitby in 1954 as the sun was coming up. She noticed. As I'm in the conversation to this fellow who works with Bill Gates, his name being Eugene, I noticed the woman's gone, and he says, Paul, I have to go. He says, I have to go back to Tampa. And I had to follow outside with him. We stepped outside. It was below 0. He only had a very light sweater on, no coat, 0. He did not shake.
He looked across the street, he looked down the street, he looked on the other way of the street, and we crossed, and I followed him, talking to him. He was very much a magnet for me to be attracted to and talking to him. And I said to him, I said, am I marked? And he smiled and he says, we're all marked, Paul. And then he stopped and he said, would you ever be afraid of meeting an extraterrestrial? As he smiled. And I said, no, not if they're friendly, you know, that we get along and, you know, share stuff. And then he smiled and we kept going on. And I said to him, you know, well, there's so much going on that, you know, we can get hurt with radiation and such. And he stopped and he looked at me and says, nothing can kill you, Paul. He said, yeah, take away your shell. But he said to me, he said, you'll carry on forever. And I was quite taken by that. And so we got to near a house after walking near 1.5 kilometers in this neighborhood. And I asked him, I said, you're such a big shot with, you know, Microsoft with Bill Gates. What are you doing in Whitby? He says, I have 2 boys here, Paul. And I pleaded with him if he could give me a ride back to my car due to the time and the distance, and it was winter. And finally he agreed he would. So we drove back near the car. So as I'm getting out of the car, I shook his hand. I said, it was very nice meeting you, very interesting. You know, come around again. And he said, everything you talked about, Paul, is true. Because I asked him, is there a war going on between Homo sapien and reptilian? At the first question, he never answered me. So I do wonder or ponder about a species war going on, and how that would be is that you have to remember who was here first before the Homo sapien was the reptilian race.
Paul, you experienced a profound sound of cricket chirping while viewing Mars in the night sky?
Correct.
Cricket chirpings are a known experience for alien visitation vehicles and EBE sightings. Can you tell us about that experience?
This goes back to August 27th, 2003, when Earth and Mars were going to be at their closest point in 60,000 years since we were Neanderthals. This is what caught my attention from the sighting now of memory, since we're Neanderthals, 60,000 years.
So they say. But go on.
So I felt I was going to see some UFOs that night. So again, approximately near 1 o'clock, as we're getting closer to 1, I was watching Mars. It was a semi-clear night, but what I found was when the clouds covered up Mars, the crickets would stop chiming. When Mars became exposed back in the sky, when the clouds would move, you could hear the crickets starting up again. And I thought, that's very strange. As I alone outside, because of the time, I was interested because, as I said, the closest point in 60,000 years was to happen at 4 a.m. I don't know the time zone, but I was out there at 1 a.m. Looking to the west, I saw a wave of light. I was gobsmacked at what I was seeing. It was a wave of light, thin, coming from the west, like a scanner, as far south, as far north as you could see, going over my head. I turn around, watching it, going to the east, like a scanner, gone. All in 15, 20 seconds max. It was almost to the point, did I just see that? What was that?
Okay, Paul, I got some real quick questions you can answer very, very simple and quickly.
Sure.
Paul, how many times were you abducted, if we were to put a number on it?
Well, as a child, I would say dozens.
Dozens.
Adulthood, because I don't have any memories in adulthood, but there are symptoms or signs that I may have been, maybe it's more, dozens, because I've seen so many UFOs. I've heard a story. Whenever you have a UFO sighting over you, directly over you, chances are you've been abducted. Right,
I heard of that too. Okay, next question. In your family history, is there a history of UFOs or paranormal activity?
Funny how you should mention that, James, because me being very curious to find that answer, I did check with my parents. I checked with aunts and uncles of anything paranormal. Also across the pond to the UK, and I didn't get an answer of anything similar.
Okay, thank you. My next question is another quick one. We know that you were a religious man in the early 2000s because you mentioned you were in church and stuff like that.
I also went to Sunday school when I was a child, alone.
Today, are you still a religious man? Knowing what you know now.
Yes, in a way I am, of what has been displayed of love, because first of all, in spirit, there must be love and joy, and you know, how extensively you want to talk about religion. Do I carry a Bible under my arm? Do I go to church every day? No.
No. Okay.
I have become more of avoidance with science, not science fiction, science. And that's my logic way of thinking in the realm of our world. Of course, religion will always be wrapped around me because I did the Lord's Prayer by my bed when I was 4, 5, 6 years old, which may have summoned these things. I don't know.
In your abductions, what do you believe was done to you and your body? Was it positive or negative? And after they released you, what message did they leave with you in your head?
Well, taking me back to childhood, I was a very shy child. I was an active child. I wasn't withdrawn or anything, but I was shy.
You had a lot of friends, Paul, growing up?
I had a lot of friends as I was growing up through the grade schools.
You were popular? You weren't isolated?
Yeah, no. Actually, I was bravoed by getting the bullies off victims because I deplored bullies. And so I didn't fight them. I talked to them and downgraded them. And they would whimper away.
Were you in a lot of fights?
In my younger years, there were a couple of bullies chasing me down. I had some bruises from that, but not a lot. That's kid stuff.
Okay. Just back to the question. He said that in all your alien abductions, has there any physical evidence of scoop marks, any marks, scratches on the face?
Sure. As a child, I remember very young, again, between the 4 to 6 year old range, that when I woke up, I couldn't open my eyes because there was a heavy film of crust on both eyes, not one, but both. And my mother had to water down the crust that would take a long time. I said, why can't I open my eyes? Screaming. She says, relax, relax, and would be bathing it with warm water. In time that I remember, it would take at least 10, 15, maybe even 20 minutes for her to finally open up my eyes. So maybe something was going on that now wanted my eyes closed not to see because I had the ability to open my eyes. So that was at childhood. Another symptom of abduction that I also noticed during those school years at that young age is that I was off on average 18 to 20 days per year with sickness. So maybe something was going on there. As an adult, when my girlfriend back then at the apartment went to her parents' trailer, I woke up a weekend on a Saturday and I looked in the mirror and my top right forehead here was a bright beet red rash. And it's almost like defined as a bad sunburn, but it was like a rash in there too. And I thought to myself, you know, how did I get that? Is some virus I caught or something? And funny enough, as we got into Sunday, it was gone. It had gone. Did it itch? No, it flaked. So was it some type of a burn? Because I'm reflecting now, because I didn't know what it was. So from memory, I could think of something like that. I have had marks where my entire back has been bruised. When I got out of bed on a Saturday, my wife said to me, Paul, what happened to your back? I go, what do you mean? It's all bruised. I looked in the mirror, it was all bruised. At the end of the day, the bruising was gone.
Wow.
Also, I have found penetrating blows to my forearms, like a circle. I've taken a couple of pictures of those. I should share those with you.
On that subject, now that we're to physical evidence, have you noticed any chips on your body, or have you been chipped in any way or alien implants?
As a child and growing into my older childhood years, I always felt there was something right here at the bottom lobe of my left ear, that there was something there. It wasn't painful, but I felt that there was something there. And I often wondered what that was. And through adulthood, I kind of forgot about it and never have felt anything since. In Sault Ste. Marie, I had something happen which I was told is called Bell's palsy. It was a nerve shot in my face. And so my face was a little off kilter. So one eye was bigger and the other eye was smaller. I thought that this could be a permanent thing where I'd have sort of a frozen face. After going to Florida the following year in February, it was gone. So I often wonder, could there have been something involving alien abduction that had an effect on my face?
Right.
Have you involuntarily experienced extreme and volatile emotions, such as maybe fear, paranoia, hopelessness, excitement, orgasmic, or anxiety, maybe even cried during your earlier experiences?
In my growing years to even who I am today, I feel in character I'm very sensitive to my surroundings. Any kind of harm to anybody or even an animal causes an infliction on me of pain or excitement of feeling sorry, having empathy for that kind of situation.
Do you think you're empathic now?
Oh, yeah.
Good. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I see people who don't look well. I pray while I see them as they pass me.
Nice.
Also, have I had stages of being very frightened, Charlie? Yes. By some of the UFO sightings I've seen that are miles in diameter. That is perpetually, wow, what is that? That is telling me how significantly small I am along with the human race, for sure. And also the fear as a child looking at that face. I will never forget that face. It was so frightening. It was the most hideous, frightening creature face that anyone could lay their eyes on. Seeing, even the eyes looked like they were bulging out, like pulsating out like this. Wrap around. The face almost looked like all two big eyes. With, you know, there was a large cranial, little couple of tufts of hair. But, you know, to look at something like that as a child, you don't know, this is like a monster, man.
Paul, having said that, as you know, I'm a ufologist and a researcher, and as you are an alien abductee, I've come across many instances where this subject, throughout a person's life, can do a lot of things to the person. When I say that, there's many people out there when they go through stuff that you and me have experienced. Maybe they're having so many experiences all at once, and they're having different things in their life happening all at the same time. I know for me in 2007, okay, I had an alcohol problem, and I had to cope with that. And having said that, have you had any similar coping problems to all this, or did you ever seek any professional guidance of any kind, like hypnosis or see a psychiatrist or similar stuff like
regarding this subject? No.
Yes. No.
No. I did approach MUFON.
Okay.
I did approach an investigator.
What was your experience with MUFON while we're on the topic? Was it a good one, positive one?
My experience with MUFON was more or less, I was overqualified. I told the director all my episodes of what I'd seen, and he said he would get back to me about it. And the next meeting I went to, he said to me, there's no one in Canada that can help you, Paul.
Really?
That was the response.
That was MUFON that said that?
That was MUFON who said that. That was the director of Ontario. I was very upset or let down that because prior to that I had gone, first of all, to my parents with little results, friends, priests, psychics, trying to find answers. I also spoke to the director of Canada's MUFON out in the East Coast for a 3.5 hour testimony of what all I'd seen, because it's that much at that time back in 2004, February. And he said to the end of the conversation, "You're making me afraid." The next conversation with the fella, he told me that cliche statement, "No one in Canada can help you." Okay,
Wow.
so again, I felt let down. So I didn't really find the help, but maybe what these men were talking about might have some substance of truth, that there is nobody that can help you. You have to help yourself understand it. And by that, from those days, from 2004 to fast forward 11 years further, here I am, of how much have I experienced, how much have I learnt about ufology, stats of sightings, alien abduction, cases of alien abductions, the very paradigm of our world, how there's something also with us, just like the microscopic world, of intelligences that I do believe are interdimensional. And I do believe, interdimensionally speaking, the fields are shifting of harmonics.
Paul, I guess our final question to wrap things up here. Paul, what is your overall message to humanity? A person like yourself that experienced so many extraordinary paranormal events. What can you offer humanity? What advice can you give citizens that maybe never had a UFO sighting and all of a sudden does? Can you give an overall answer to humanity, your answer?
My advice, based on my experience and research into our world here today, of our planet, tells me now of the food chain of authority. And in the food chain of authority, it looks to me like any given food chain, there'll always be a top and there'll always be a bottom. And so I've looked at the information, and based on what I've seen with my own eyes, we do have various levels of higher intelligences. Some of them are lower, that I believe that can come from between the 3rd and 4th, and then other higher ones that can come beyond the 4th to the 5th, 6th, 7th, maybe infinite, based on their physical form, be it even pure energy versus translucent versus even solid. So they're obviously interdimensional. So based on our world today, we are developing technologies from another race or / races of new technologies, that it's been said that if we were ever to make contact with an advanced civilization, our world would immensely change, if not be destroyed. Is that not now happening with our technologies of the use of nuclear, of the use of different technologies of microwave, where now the food chain is starting to show signs that it's starting to collapse? So mainly, I think what's very important is to see that we do have economic problems, we do have political problems, but most of all that I'm sensing this is very bad that people should be aware of is the nest is being destroyed. And we need to change our ways of how we conduct ourselves in living. And by that, we need to go after changing the energy to free, environmentally friendly energy, as well as going into, with our new technology heights of discovery, and bring out alternate ways of healing. So we can now be more freer as a society without these plights of being stuck with energy and not being sick, where we're healthy, and a healthy clan we are. Because we know now they're changing our food, an authority is changing the food to GMOs. And doing to the experiments that have been done worldwide, GMOs are not good because the lab rats will not reproduce after 3rd generation.
It's funny, Paul, you mentioned that on that topic there, when you say authority. Now, there is an authority out there that rules the world, I believe. It's a group of people. And not only are they doing what you have mentioned, but they're also chemtrailing our skies.
Correct.
They're also harping our skies.
Yes.
They're weather modulating our weather. Okay.
Yes.
They're putting fluoride in all our water.
Yes.
This authority that you're talking about, Do you think they have an agenda to depopulate the Earth?
Based on the information out there and based on the numbers of how the style we affect or impact the Earth of living, yes, because they know that the oxygen levels are starting to drop very low on this planet. This is key, because oxygen creates ozone. Without oxygen, there's no ozone, right? And also, the water quality is not as pure as it used to be. So they're understanding that soon everything will be so convoluted and tainted that there won't be any existence for any biological matter called humans. So they want to nip that in the bud. So when you talk about the authority, as I earlier said of a food chain, James, that I believe there are powerful families, and I'll give it a number of 13. And below the 13 families, there are 20 million key people put in place in every facet of our world, in corporation, banks, leadership, government programs, you name it. Hollywood, music industry is got a key person in there. And when the phone rings, that key person is told how to act and how to design the way our structure is, and to telling their people what to do, and simulating this world that we are a host held hostage in a hostile world. You don't have to work the bone for anywhere from 40 to 60 hours a week. I believe all you need to do is work 20 to 25 hours a week and specializing what you're doing, giving everyone jobs and everyone the power or the authority of the new free energies, the new technologies of healing, and we get closer to our families now and know ourselves much better of whom we are, and now having the time allowance to understand what love is and to choosing the right companion where there's no divorces, that we know who we are, we know where we're going, and we've actually now had enough time to know our gifts.
Paul, what made you come out today to speak to the Uforia Chronicles, and what's your message to other experiencers?
Charlie, I know I'm out of character with this, but of course I have gone public now. I've staked my name and reputation, and one of the reasons why I've come forward to the public's eye is that I want others like myself, experiencers, people who have experienced a UFO, not to be afraid, but to digest it, to understand more of themselves now, and to other things that are outside them, to connect that we are not alone, and that we talk about guardian angels, and we talk about guides, and this could be what's coming immersing around us all, that once more people become aware of themselves, they'll start to understand of their talents, of what they can do, whether it be from healing, whether it be through psychic abilities, whether it even be telekinesis, psychokinesis, that more people should be aware of how the world works, because we're in a box, we're under containment, and we need now to understand the containment we're in, and to be outside the box to understand the containment, right? It's something more people should be connecting and understanding. Once we ID that we have a higher species or higher intelligence around us, we need to know who's the higher authority running this planet. And could it be that maybe these humans that are these elite families are being led by the nose by a non-human entity that might not even be non-physical?
In closing, you've just heard some amazing encounters and experiences by a fantastic man, a human being, Paul Shishis. And Paul is just one of many hundreds of millions of people that had UFO sightings and experiences as well that maybe have not come out of the woodwork. And what I'd like to say, I'd like to encourage more of us to come out of the woodwork and go public with these sightings and experiences, because together we're strong. We're a stronger unit. When we have more and more people coming and talking about, maybe we can change the authority that's running in our world to a better authority, one that's more accountable, one that's more loving. And in closing, the Uforia Chronicles, we specialize in documenting your stories and experiences and information. So if you're out there, we'd like to hear from you. Contact us. We can do your story. That's our specialty. We want to hear your story. That's what we're into. In the truth of the matter, We want a better world for all, and that's why we're doing this. Have you ever had an experience in your life that involved aliens, UFOs, ghosts, or the unexplained? Do you have a story or message that you would like to have recorded and profiled? If you do, then let us know. The Uforia Chronicles specialize in documenting your experiences and information that you would like to share with the world. For a custom quote to profile your story, then contact us.